What's up, guys? So today we are doing my bad film review for Assassin's Creed. So I will give you the percentages first, and then we'll get into like really in depth into my review of the film. So the scores are: for Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score was 18%, the audience score was 43%. For Metacritic, the critic score was 36%, the user score was 63%. IMDb had 58%. 83% of Google users liked the film, and that brings the average of those 6 scores to 50.2% when rounded to 1 decimal point. My score was a lot higher than that average. I had 70% was the grand total that I rate this. So it's still, as far as, like, I wouldn't call it a good film. It's definitely watchable, but it's still, as far as I'm concerned, in that higher end of middle ground. It hasn't quite broken into the good films, which I would say is 75% and higher. So if you're new to the channel, I have a series that I do where I review films that have sort of a less than 50% critic score, and as I just mentioned, like half of the scores that I gave then were less than 50%. So Assassin's Creed definitely qualifies as a bad film as far as that's concerned. And I break each film down into 10 different parts and then review the film based on those 10 parts to give a total score out of 100. So those parts are script, casting, acting, directing, cinematography, editing, set design, soundtrack, special and visual effects, and then accuracy to source material or originality as a new concept. Assassin's Creed fits into both in that last category because it is a new story as far as the Assassin's Creed franchise is concerned, but it has to be accurate to the mythology and sort of the overall story that the franchise has created before this film was released. So that's what we're working with here. And yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so we start with script, which I've given a 5. Basically, I liked that it was an original story set within the Spanish Inquisition, so 1492 I believe is the year. But at the same time, it didn't feel like it was fully fleshed out enough to be like a proper Assassin's Creed story. It just sort of, as far as the story and the script is concerned, just felt a bit more of a cash grab than an actual self-contained story. Even though I do know that people from Ubisoft, the company that makes the Assassin's Creed games, were actually involved in making the film. So script gets a 5. Casting gets a 9. If you go onto IMDb, the top billed cast, which they usually give you 4 actors or actresses, they are Michael Fassbender, who plays the main character Lynch, and he had been doing the X-Men movies before this. So he did First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse before this film came out. So he'd come from portraying another beloved character from a much loved pre-existing property. So he already had that sort of understanding of how to give the fans what they want while still allowing new audience members, the wider audience that was going to come and see the film, and how to draw them in. Marion Cotillard, who played Sophia Riken, the scientist, had also similarly come from a comic book film. She was Talia al Ghul from Dark Knight Rises, which, interestingly enough, was also a sort of side villain / love interest, the same way that this character is. And both Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard had come from Macbeth in 2015, where they played Macbeth and Lady Macbeth respectively. So they already had a rapport with each other and a bit of on-screen chemistry that they could sort of tap into. So it was really cool that they were the main two. We then have Jeremy Irons, who's an amazing actor. As far as much beloved characters and or popular villains that he has portrayed, since he's playing a villain in this. He played Alfred from Dawn of Justice, and then obviously in Justice League afterwards. He played Macon Ravenwood in Beautiful Creatures, who is more of a side protagonist. Like he's not a villain in that, but he does deal with like dark magic in that film because it deals with magic. And he was also the voice of Scar from The Lion King, way back when. So he knows how to sort of be that villainous character. And I think he was an excellent choice as the villain. I just don't think that, and again, this is because the scripting was given enough time to sort of flex those villainous muscles, which was a bit of a letdown. And then last but not least, Brendan Gleeson, who had been playing Mad-Eye Moody in the Harry Potter films before this, knew how to play a sort of tough love, sympathetic character, much like Callum Lynch's father in this film. So I think the casting was spot on. Side characters and like less sort of popular actors, or sort of less important characters, I think could have had a bit more I don't know, like slightly better actors, I guess, is what I'm kind of trying to say, without being disrespectful to the actors that were actually in it, because they did a great job. But yeah, there was definitely a little bit of room for improvement, but the main cast, as far as I'm concerned, was pretty good. As far as acting goes, I hated, that's a very strong word. I didn't like Callum Lynch. He kind of reminded me a little bit of just a more aggro Desmond Miles. I hate Desmond Miles. So to remind me of him was kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna just I have to deal with your scenes because you progress the story, but I'd much rather be just watching a film about Aguilar, let's be honest. Whereas Aguilar, I fully believed him as a character, was really good. I've sort of already gone through all my notes on this when talking about the cast. Jeremy Irons wasn't allowed to, had too little, when words want to work, too little screen time. Cotillard played either side of the antagonist love interest line, which led to sort of a confusing and unresolved secondary storyline, like the love story in the film sort of went up and down, and it's not really clear if it ended on an up or a down. Because the last time they interact, it's sort of, you know, she doesn't scream and alert everyone to his presence. But then, as soon as he leaves again, she turns around and she's like, oh no, I want to kill him for myself. And it's kind of like, are you a bad guy or are you in love with him? Like, just pick a side. And then Brendan Gleeson's character, while it was cool that he was in the film, his character didn't really offer that much to the story. It was just kind of like, oh, we need a reason for you to hate assassins so that when you ultimately pick them, it's like, oh, he's changed as a character, he's grown. And that's really all Brendan Gleeson's character was. He was a plot point, and that's upsetting for such an amazing actor. So acting gets a 7. Directing got an 8. There were a couple of director's choices that I really liked, like actually having the leap of faith from 38 meters. There was a 38-meter free fall, which was described as one of the highest free falls performed by a stuntman in almost 35 years, that they used for this film as far as the leap of faith was concerned, because they didn't want to use computer-generated imagery, CGI. They decided to change the animus from being the chair that it is in the games, so that you get more of this, more of a modern, interactive and sort of dramatic experience with seeing this big arm just sort of reach down and lift him up into the air. And it also helped to avoid comparisons and confusion with The Matrix, which is another movie where a person sits in a chair and then goes into basically a simulation. So the other thing was that they wanted to create a new character that was still within the same mythology, which is why it's, you know, it's not another Desmond character. So that gets an 8 for all of those, and then of course all of the good parts of the acting, like all of the action scenes were really well done. The fight scenes were really well choreographed. And all those directing choices I really liked. Cinematography gets a 7 for the extreme wide shots and like the establishing shots of like the cities or the Abstergo facility, and anything that had the eagle in the shot. I know there's this nice big sort of tracking shot behind an eagle as it like swoops down under a bridge, while all these guys sort of charge towards this stronghold. It's really well framed, and I like the way it sort of moves you through the action before you actually come to, and obviously it's an establishing shot, but it moves you through what else is happening at the time, so you can get an understanding of why the stakes are where the stakes are, which is really good. And then of course the use of like light and colour in the less action-filled scenes helps to set the dramatic tone for those scenes. So like in the Abstergo laboratory, there's a lot of like whites and soft blues as far as light's concerned, which helps give this sort of calming effect. Whereas in the in like Andalucia, where they're having the chase scenes or whatever, there's lots of like oranges and sort of more aggressive colours, because they're more fueled with like the, I don't know, passion and hatred and all these other emotions that just help make those scenes a little bit more immersive. Editing, I've given a 6 to. I I felt that the action scenes were really nicely cut together. However, on a one hand, other hand thing that sort of contradicts each other, I liked that they gave us the ability to sort of go, okay, that's what's happening here. How are the modern day people reacting to what's happening in the Animus? Have a quick look at them, come back into the action. I liked that they gave us that because it allowed those characters time to sort of build, and you could sort of see them come to realizations or make certain decisions for themselves before it was explicitly stated through dialogue that that's what they'd chosen to do. But at the same time, it took you out of the actual action that's happening. The scene where they're being tied to the stakes and burnt. There's an actual shot where you come out and you can see in the holograms projected by the lights what's going on in the Animus, but you're still not in the Animus. And then the next shot you're back in the actual Animus scene, watching it as if it's happening in front of you. And it's just like, why did you take me out to see that one shot when you could have just kept me in the action and not sort of broken that believability of this is what's happening right now? Was it just kind of like, oh, by the way, this is still a simulation. Of course we know that, but why take us out of the action? So editing gets a 6. Set design, I gave a 6 to as well. While being above average and sort of what you'd expect, the Abstergo facility and the scenes within like 1492 Spain were still beautifully built, like the actual sets that they worked on. So the Abstergo facility was just sci-fi enough to be like, okay, obviously there's a machine there that can actually let you revisit your ancestors' genetic memories, but at the same time it was militant enough to be like, okay, that could be a real world facility. I could actually walk in there and that's what it would look like, which was really nice. And then obviously the scenes set in Spain in 1492 were believable as such, and yeah, I liked that there's one part where they show you a painting, it's a famous painting that's been slightly modified to fit with what happened in the movie, and it's shown in the movie as being the real thing, where they actually painted the characters wearing their same costumes and stuff, and so the set for that had to be basically built the exact way it would have looked back when that painting was actually made, which was kind of cool. I liked that about it, but otherwise the sets were kind of basic, so it gets a 6. As far as soundtrack is concerned, as we're moving through these things rather quickly, the only song that I can remember is that opening song, and there's literally only like one verse that you really hear, and that is the entrance song by the Black Angels, and the thing that I like about it was that it helped to set up Callum Lynch's character as being this sort of more aggressive character, because its lyrics, and I'm paraphrasing like hell here, is basically about driving a car very quickly down a highway. That's basically what the verse says, and then you get this shot of him as a child riding his bike, and he crashes it, and then he goes home, and his father's killed his mother, and you sort of get that image with that song, and it's like, okay, I understand that he's going to be a little bit of an aggressive character. And then of course we jump forward in time and he's killed a guy and is being basically sentenced to death for it, and it's like, okay, that's believable because of what we've just established as his character through the music. Other than that, the soundtrack is basically basic cinematic background music. It helps set a bit of a scene for what you're actually seeing, so the sound matches the visuals, but other than that, it's nothing particularly special. Certainly no one's remembering the soundtrack to this film. So a 5. Visual effects gets an 8. I just personally liked the smoky quality that the holograms and the bleeding effect hallucinations were given. I liked that about it. Definitely was like, okay, I'm clearly seeing, like, everything else is nice and sharp here. That's a bit smoky, so I'm obviously seeing that one particular person is a hallucination right now, and that was fine. I think my favourite part was when they're looking in a mirror. No, he's looking through the window, and in the reflection in the mirror, keep saying mirror, and it's a window. He's looking through a window in his room in the Abstergo facility, and he starts having a hallucination of Aguilar behind him, but he can see the reflection in the window, and I really liked that. That was a nice little effect. As far as accuracy and originality goes, I'm going to give this a 9. It was an original story as far as the franchise is concerned, but it did still have some very lovely references to a multitude of the games in the franchise. So the entire initiation scene at the beginning, before the title card comes up, is word for word pretty much Ezio's initiation scene in, like, the bell tower or whatever it is from that game. So there's I'm going to assume that it's Arabic words that are spoken in the Maxim. Then the actual, like, when others are bound by morality or law, remember everything's permitted part is still word for word from the games. So that was really good. Within the compound, there's a whole heap of times where you see actual assassins from the games, characters who are descended from characters in the game, as actual characters interacting with Callum Lynch, or weapons and references in that regard to any of the games. So among the multitude here, we have Altair's sword from the first Assassin's Creed, we have Connor's bow from the third Assassin's Creed. Callum Lynch actually uses this bow in his last fight within Abstergo before leaving. We have Edward Kenway's flintlock pistols from Black Flag, the cane swords of the twins Jacob and Evie Fry from Syndicate, and there's an axe and a guillotine gun of Arno Dorian from Unity. There is during one of the Andalucia scenes, there is a character that gets pushed off a building and he lands in a haystack, which is, of course, the usual place that you would land after doing a leap of faith within the games. I Am Become Death, the Destroyer of Worlds, is the Glyph 13 from Assassin's Creed 2. It's a line spoken by one of the characters. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of other things as well. But yeah, I give it a 9, which brings the total score to 70. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments section down below what movies you'd like to see me review as part of the Bad Film Reviews. And don't forget to hit that subscription button and the notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload next, which will be on Wednesday. And then you can follow me at the social medias above. They're not linked, unfortunately, but I will get the links to you guys as soon as I can. Until next time, guys, all hail the king.